had a debate about how we want to be seen by the rest of the world. So India is growing very fast. So when you're doing well, some people will come and try that, bring you down a little bit. India is a powerful country. You cannot attack India militarily. So the easiest way to attack India is through perception. There is this rule of thumb which says that when you have a bad perception, you lose 10% of your GDP. And in India, we don't have that. And that's because we have a bad perception overall as a country. $400 billion a year that we are not making because of a bad perception. We monitor all the press in the world. You have like 93% negative articles about India in the world. The most powerful tool of soft power for India is yoga. There are 300 million people in the world who practice yoga outside India. If you ask people where is yoga from, they won't really know. They say, oh, it's from Asia, from Tibet maybe, or Nepal, or Thailand. And it can be funny now, because in India, we say, who thinks it's not from India? But no, people start to think that. There is one country in the world who's the absolute expert of that is USA.
All you hear about about India now is pollution.
Yeah.
So that has to be not only corrected and improved, but it has to be shown to the world.
The problem that you have in when you want to change perception is you cannot market something that the rest of all the world already did. India wants very often to market the fact that we are catching up and everything. No one cares about catching up. You need to be ahead of something.
Yeah.
And India has like so many things, but we never, wanted. Those guys are able to market their shameful parts, and we are not able to take the glory of India.
Namaskar, Pranam, greetings. This is the podcast that is being done every now and then. It is called Delhi Diwan, and it's my pleasure to welcome a friend as a guest to the podcast, Ram Divedi, who is Indian but partly French, and who has a very unusual and interesting career and background because he is an intelligence expert, specialist, but he's also an entrepreneur who works with the Indian military, manufactures electric vehicles, and has a number of other activities, including monitoring the media through his foundation, Kutniti, to analyze and try to rectify the coverage of India abroad, because it is often negative and even more often inaccurate or unfair. So welcome, Ram.
Thank you, Com.
My name is Carpentier, and I would like to ask you first what you have observed and what are your conclusions with regard to some of the challenges that India is facing today in terms of its image internationally.
So India is growing very fast in the last years. So it's the largest growth in major economies in the world. So when you're doing well, some people will come and try that you don't go that. Try to bring you down a little bit. And India is a powerful country. You cannot attack India militarily easily or anything. So the easiest way to attack India is through perception. It's basically to destroy India as a brand. And there are some countries who are very good at it. And India is under heavy attacks for the last few years on the perception level. And people might say, oh, it's okay, we don't care about what the rest of the world think about us, which is fine. There is no reason to bother. But in fact, the implications are very, very high. You have implications that are logic, like tourism is very, very low in India compared to the potential and the incredible country that we have here. Foreign investments, everything. But overall, the main problem is everything sold from India is only a cost arbitrage. There is this rule of thumb which says that when you have a bad perception, you lose 10% of your GDP. So for India, 4 trillion, so it's $400 billion a year that we are not making because of a bad perception. If you look at anything sold by India, it's sold because of cost arbitrage. We are not able to make people pay a premium for an Indian brand. The only time we are able to sell whatever, it's medicine, IT services, whatever, and it can be of good quality. I don't think it's bad quality. It can even be of good quality just because we are slightly cheaper than a foreign, possibility. But if people were able to buy something from a different country, they would do it. In fact, even us in India, we prefer to buy foreign brands, or at least we won't, pay a premium for Indian brand. I'll give you an example. If you take any of my auntie or whatever, they'll go to a jewelry shop, in their head, they are very smart ladies. They'll calculate the amount of gold you have in that, like a necklace, the amount of stones, how many hours of work. They do a rule of thumb in their head, and they know that, okay, they are okay to pay 10%, like margin to the guy, and that's what they are ready to pay. But if you have a fancy girl in India who will go to a mall and buy something from Cartier or Louis Vuitton, she's totally okay to pay 90% margin on that. That's the power of a brand. And in India, we don't have that. We don't have brands. And that's because we have a bad perception overall as a country. Even if many Indian companies do fantastically well, have very top-class product and everything, the brand of the country doesn't work. And one of the reasons is because it's attacked heavily by foreign entities.
Yeah, that is true. But don't you think it's also because India has not yet been able to work sufficiently on building quality, or at least, as you said, the brand? Because there is still that image that attaches to India, which is one of poverty and underpaid labor and basically straitened conditions. Therefore, people expect to pay less in India than they would pay anywhere else for the same thing.
But that's a perception. China had the same issues, but they have been able to overcome that problem. And now, people genuinely understand that many products from China, like phones or whatever, are of high quality. So India can totally change that. And there are many, for sure, there are some bad quality stuff in India, but there are also some great quality products or services made in India.
Yeah, actually, when you think of it, most countries, including Japan and others, have also started from a very low benchmark. And eventually they built this reputation. And Japan in the 1960s was like India is today, or even worse in a way. But how do you explain, what do you suggest is the way to overcome that? What should the concrete steps being taken?
The plan is, the first thing is to identify what's happening, to understand the problems. So for example, we monitor all the press in the world. You have 93% negative articles about India in the world. If you read one article, and again, I have no problem that foreign journalists write negative articles about India. If it's 50-50, 60-40, it's okay. But when you have 93% bad articles about India, it means there is a propaganda machine behind. If you look at social media, and one social media we monitor, it's TikTok. It's not in India, so we don't really realize the problem there. But everything about India is horrible. The image of India is very bad, and it's a young generation, so that's a big problem over there. We highlight something every week called the 0%ers. There are many journalists who, most of them live in India. They are foreign correspondents. They are Indian correspondents, for foreign media. And their job is to talk about India. So every week they will publish an article in New York Times, Washington Post, DW, ABC, newspapers from all over the world. They live in India. Sometimes they are Indians, sometimes they are foreigners. They live in India, they write a ton of articles, but they never publish one good article about India. So how do you call that, Kwame? If I write 150 articles in let's say 3 years about India, and out of 150, 0 is positive, what is it called? It's a propaganda machine there.
Yeah.
So that's the problem that we have right now. And what misconception people have about psychological operation and destabilization of countries through perception is you don't really attack the bad things. It's perfectly fine to have something bad in your country. What people attack in India, they attack the good things. So I'll give you, let's say, 3 examples. One thing all the foreigners love about India is the food. India has an incredible cuisine and everything. So people love to try Indian food and everything. It's a very appreciated food. So what the foreign countries did, and let's name them, it's Qatar and Turkey, the 2 countries who did that. They launched in November 2022 a massive operation against India on food. So they made those viral, those street food videos that are energetic, and some of them are true. I'm not saying it's fake. But then they move slowly to AI videos and everything. And today, the most popular content about India in the world is street food videos. They have 50, 60, 70, 100 million views on TikTok, on social media and everything. So they really attack that. Then all those scam things about, against the H-1B visa and everything that Indians are cheaters and scammers and everything and all those things. And then the thing that we are really monitoring right now, it's yoga. Because the most powerful tool of soft power for India is yoga. There are 300 million people in the world who practice yoga outside India. And there are 1.25 billion people in the world who did yoga at some point in their life, even if it was just at work or whatever for one day, but they understand what it is. It's really something powerful from India. But now, India is totally using yoga. If you look at if you ask people where is yoga from, they won't really know. They say it's from Asia, from Tibet maybe, or Nepal, or Thailand, or China. some people will say India, but it starts to be totally, like removed. Or now they'll come with that thing of Hindu Valley civilization, and it's from Pakistan, basically. Pakistani are really claiming yoga very, very strongly. And it can be funny now, because in India, we say, who thinks it's not from India? But no, people start to think that. There is even a movement trying to say that India is from Kemet, like the Egyptian ancient civilization and everything before the pharaohs. And today, the main organization who controls yoga in the world is a US organization. And they control the things, they control the teachers, they are the one with the most offices in the world. Most of the big accounts on social media talking about yoga, teaching yoga, are not Indians. There is Baba Ram Dev, who's very strong on social media, he's the number 2 in the world, but he speaks in Hindi. So if you don't speak Hindi, then after you won't watch him. All the other accounts are from Germany, US, Canada, all those countries. And they are the one who took over that. And then they remove the substance of yoga and give you Pilates, like leggings, Lululemon vibe of yoga. Again, I have nothing against these people. They are trying to do something positive in their life, but they are slowly removing, the soft power that India could leverage from yoga in the world.
Also, I have noticed that they are making it into a more and more competitive discipline.
Yeah.
And competition is a big draw, especially in the West, but all over the world, because people love to compete.
Yeah.
And so once you tell them you can enter a yoga competition and win, I know in Russia they do it at a very high level, and they have achieved very accomplished practices. They are perfectionists. So you say, well, that in a sense gives a life to yoga. And in India, it's seen more as a sort of spiritual and physical well-being thing, which is not very exciting. People feel it's a little boring to sit and stretch and do these things and make some, utter some sounds and all. So yes, there is definitely here an element of commercialization, which as usual expands the reach of something, because anything that's commercial inevitably becomes part of the economy, right? This being said, I must say I am a little I'm surprised by the way you describe the coverage of India as so almost uniformly negative, because when I wander about in any big city in the world and I see, for example, in travel agencies, the posters or the folders or the brochures about India, it's all wonderful. You have this image of a real dream civilization with wonderful temples, elephants, tigers, maharajas, 5-star hotels. It all looks absolutely amazing. So I suspect there is also some positive presentation of India, which has to do, of course, with the commercial desire from some companies to bring people to India on their tours. So don't you think that there is still an element of India's incredible India that is being marketed rather successfully? How do you evaluate that?
Tour operators try to bring people to India, but the problem is India today is seen as very dirty, very unsafe for women especially. And honestly, India didn't do a very big job at developing tourism in India. If you go to the potential of tourism in India is unlimited. India should be the most visited country in the world by far. But if you look, you have, you mentioned 5-star hotels. Go to a 5-star hotel in India, you only have Indians.
Yeah.
If you go in Delhi, we are in Delhi, I live in Delhi for 15 years. If you go to any, like Oboro or whatever, you'll see Indians from Kolkata, from Mumbai, from whatever, but not many foreigners.
Well, they are quite expensive.
Yeah. Some corporates, and 5 stars in India are expensive, but compared to other countries, they are still affordable, and the quality of service and hospitality in India is incredibly high.
Yeah.
India, for example, you're French. I grew up in France. I moved to France when I was 4 and I grew up there and everything. France is the biggest country in the world for skiing by very, very far. The Alps is nice mountains, but it's nothing compared to Himalayas. There is zero reason in the world that India doesn't have 50% of the ski tourism in the world. Same for that. Like if you look at Andaman and Nicobar, it's totally underused. The safaris, everything. There are like 10,000 types of, niche tourism that we could develop in India that we don't have outside the Taj Mahal and like those kind of activities. And on top of that, the tourism in India has a problem. It's very cheap. People who don't want to spend so much money. So per tourist, what they will spend is not very, very high. While the same person, if they go to New York, for example, they spend 10 times more than India. And then they'll complain and say, oh, I went to India, I spent, like 1,000 rupees a day, and the experience was not that great. Yeah, India is expensive today. You need to put a bit of money.
Yes. People think that they are still on the hippie trail sometimes. Yeah. But what I noticed is that a lot of tourists who come to India, of course, they do not want to pay these high hotel prices because the millionaires are there too, but millionaires by definition are few anywhere you go. So that's why India is doing better with its own millionaires and its whole upper middle class than with foreigners, because Indians are right here and they have a lot of money and they're willing to spend it. Whereas the foreigners will always generally try to get a budget. They will not go to a place which they feel is needlessly expensive when they can find a nice, pleasant accommodation at a moderate price. So do you suggest that India should basically reform its, not so much its tourism policy, although that too should be in a way sharpened, but do you think it should primarily focus on creating a situation that is really attractive, more attractive than what is now being presented?
In India, we never had a debate about how we want to be seen by the rest of the world. There are some countries who have a very clear branding about how they want to be seen. It doesn't have to encompass everything you are, but it's really how you want to be seen. So if you talk about a country like France or Italy, for example, they really position themselves in the lifestyle, high-end, luxury, all those experience and everything. And they are very good at that. And France is the most visited country in the world. Paris is the most visited city in the world for many, many years. So they are very good at doing that. There are some countries who had this branding that happened quite recently. If you look at China, for example, they did, and it's something I studied a lot when I was a student and everything in the intelligence school in France. They had a very bad image. In fact, they were very, very, similar to India. In the early 2000, it was child labor, they're eating dogs, it was a horrible compare. So during the 2000s, what they did is they totally changed their strategy and they said, okay, let's brand ourselves. So they say, okay, what can we achieve? They realized that they would never be able to achieve the image of a nice country. They would not be New Zealand or Switzerland, one of these cute little countries. They say, we will always be seen as something strong. But in fact, being strong is good. So they said, okay, now our whole marketing will be that we are strong businessmen. That's what they want to be seen as. And they did all the PR and everything there.
And the infrastructure. Infrastructure is the first way.
Region, everything. They bring 20 drones, they do shots, they invite influencers from US to recognize that. They make people witness, their growth and everything and their power. And now people are scared of China. While they never fired a bullet. Nothing. They tried to fight a bit at the border with India. It was not going very, very well for them. That's the only thing they did. But without firing one bullet, just through perception, they gave a very, very good thing. And for sure, they did an incredible development in their country. If you look at even countries with not a lot of budget, like South Korea, they managed to leverage a lot of things by copying a bit Japan on the K-pop and drama and the skincare routine. They understood that skincare is something that works very well on social media. So they base everything that they have the best skincare in the world. Skincare is something so niche. Yeah. It gives you such a powerful leverage about your country, and then it brings automatically cleanliness, technology, hype, beauty, all those things in one world. So that's interesting. If you look at a very poor country like El Salvador, they build their own narrative through a lot of PR on the fact that they can tackle, violence, gang violence and everything.
Yeah.
They have one thing, but they did it very, very well.
Yeah.
And if you look at, honestly, the best PR of any head of state in the world right now, it's Bukele. He has the best PR.
Yeah.
The way he looks, the way he speaks, the media training he has. And we talk about El Salvador. It's the GDP of,
won't say about it. The only thing he knew is that they had a civil war.
Yeah, but now, they have such, thing. So my question, and I don't have the answer, to India and to Indian is, how do we want to be seen by the rest of the world? And there are many answers. Maybe we can be the, new tech countries, AI, IT, whatever thing, super, smart people that's one way. Or we can be seen as the, ancient yoga, spirituality, rooted thing, or we want to be seen as the land of diversity, whatever you want. But we need to have that, create a marketing on that, create a brand on that, and, enforce it, bring people and have a real strategy of marketing and branding. And that's a real thing. The biggest spender in the whole world in marketing and PR, it's not Coca-Cola, it's not a company, it's the government of Saudi Arabia. Yeah. The largest spender in the world of PR and marketing is the government of Saudi Arabia.
Well, they have a lot to do.
They start from very, very, very far. They did half a good job. Yeah. I think they failed a lot of projects, so it was a bit of a problem. But still, MBS is seen as a modern head of state, a reformist, someone who's doing things and everything. We can debate about that, but they did a lot of things.
Listen, all the states in the Gulf have done extremely well on that score. Particularly UAE, Qatar, even Oman has also created its image as a beautiful, peaceful, and welcoming country, which it is. Now, as I understand your view, I think that the main job with India is to not only carry out a massive operation of upgrading the state of its facilities, especially the conditions of its, generally speaking, of its environment, because all you hear about about India now is pollution, especially in the cities, and dirt. So that has to be not only corrected and improved, but it has to be shown to the world. I think India should really carry out a great cleaning up campaign and popularize it, promote it, and show that it's doing a lot about it, because that will have a big impact in changing perceptions, I think.
The problem that you have in when you want to change perception is you cannot market something that the rest of the world already did. India wants very often to market the fact that we are catching up and everything. No one cares about catching up. You need to be ahead of something.
Yeah,
it's better to be ahead of two things that are very small than trying to show that now we are tackling. Like no one cares that India is able to, like, when I was a kid, we have, like 20 hours a day of power cuts. And now in Delhi, I have maybe 1 minute. That's a fantastic, like achievement. But no one cares because all the other countries, they had that in the past. So they won't be impressed by that. You need to have something a bit new. And it's better to have something small, but new that no one has and everything. Maybe something more like UPI, like that thing is there. The way that many things in India work better today that in the West, for example, can be interesting.
well, the airports are nicer.
The terminals in India are like super cool and everything. So working on those things can be maybe more interesting than trying to show like meta goals and everything that are difficult to market.
Yeah, or for example, launching satellites, which people find is very commendable, but they are not, the people who visit India will not necessarily be very interested in that. They take it for granted.
In fact, there is something very weird, but it's totally possible to market your bad parts. You can have things that don't work in your country, and you can make them glamorous. There is one country in the world who's the absolute expert of that is USA. USA, they have no shame. So all the countries, they have this strategy where they take what's work. Again, you take the Italian, they take their beautiful food and everything. The Korean, they take their skincare, something that works very well. And they try to put all the energy there. The Americans, they do it with what work well. They are hardworking people, very entrepreneurs. They have, like a huge culture of finance and everything. It's a beautiful country. So they show that. It's true. But it's the country in the world who's the best at marketing their bad parts. I'll give you an example. They have these ghettos everywhere in US. The cities that are more dangerous than, most of the countries in the world. Sorry, they have people killing each other every day, not producing anything or whatever. In fact, many countries in the world have bad neighborhoods. But any country, when you have a bad neighborhood, you put, like a high curtain in front, and you don't want people to talk about it. Americans, they have no shame. They have the hip-hop culture, fashion, music, everything. The president of the country will shake hands with popular gangsters of that ghettos because they became famous rappers and everything. And today, you have a kid in Gurgaon who will listen to the music of, these poor black guys who kill each other in the streets of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And they will find it's very cool and nice and everything, and that because the marketing around that is there.
Yeah.
Another example I like to take is if you look at the history of India is incredible.
Yeah.
And we never marketed 0.1% of it. If you look at the history of US, they have some interesting part, but they started yesterday.
It's a very short history, and most of it is very pedestrian.
They have a huge part of their history, which is the conquest of the West. It's
Yeah.
basically cowboys
Yeah.
going in the open, killing the local people who are living there. They didn't build anything much in terms of art, science, everything there. But so basically, it should be like a bit shameful. Like it should be like just guys who don't take showers, who kill, the local population. What they did around that, movies, video games, Red Dead Redemption, like some of the most sold, they have a full aesthetics about the cowboy on his horse, who's an adventurer and everything and that. So even something which is absolutely boring in terms of history, you can make it something super glamorous.
Yeah, if you make it into some sort of a sentimental drama, with violence and love, and it's just you.
It became a genre by itself, the cowboy, aesthetics and everything. And India has so many things, but we never, wanted. Those guys are able to market their shameful parts, and we are not able to take the glory of India in national.
Well, I think India has made a lot of movies that reflect the history.
They are made for Indians.
But they are made mostly for Indians. Let's recognize that they are being watched in many parts of the world, but not in the West. They are mostly watched in the Middle East, in North Africa, in Central Asia. But it's true that it hasn't connected to the Western sensibility so far, except for very few movies. So yeah, I agree that there should be a better, technique of winning over some markets where Indian art is still seen as very exotic and only for connoisseurs and very sophisticated people, but the masses are mostly indifferent about it.
I mean, you can look at it through the lens of religion. The main religion of India is Hinduism, and there are many religions that are quite similar and everything. They are popular in the rest of the world, but the type of people who are interested by Hinduism are very realistic people.
Yeah.
Because the level of depth of Hinduism is so high that look at who was interested in history by Hinduism. Schopenhauer, Einstein, Oppenheimer, in French, if you take it, André Malraux, it's people with an IQ above 150 who are the smartest scientists, writers, everything that.
Or people who are interested in mysticism and religion who are also a minority.
People who read already 100 books about that and everything. So the level of, it's so complex and so deep that if you're not born inside, typically the people, if you go to the mandir, the Hindu mandir in Paris, 95% of people are from India or Mauritius because they are Hindus by birth. But there are 5% of like local white people and everything. All of them have a PhD.
Yeah, that's true.
All of them are extremely smart people.
Yeah.
And that's because that's the level of depth here. So, and what the Americans do is they take something, they simplify it, they oversimplify it, but they are good at marketing.
Yeah, that's a strength. True also for many European inventions, which the Americans were able to market and make fortunes out of, whereas the Europeans, especially the French, were never able to achieve that, in most cases. Anyway, it's a fascinating conversation, and I have to thank my guest, Ram Divedi, and I'm sure that his work and his advice will hopefully bring about some changes and some improvements in India's strategy and campaign to make itself better known and also more familiar and more welcoming to people who are still a bit afraid because they think in India you may run risk to your health and you may not have adequate care if you fall ill and all these things that are seen as being part of sort of relatively dangerous areas of the world. So that hopefully should change because India has changed and continues to change, and so it will be basically easier and easier to connect with and to know. So thank you very much, Ram.
Thank you, Ko.
And all the best.
Namaskar.